Good afternoon and welcome again from Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I'm offering some program notes for a very interesting feature from Token Creek, which we're entitling Contemporaries, using this rather loosely and over a rather wide time frame. We have had a great variety of performances of music of the recent past and present at Token Creek. And we're going to start our concert, I think quite appropriately, with some music by Roger Sessions, who is an extremely important American composer. And I should just put the cards straight on the table and say he's a composer considered with some justice to be a difficult composer to understand fully, at least at first hearing. And he knew that it was a necessary part of his enterprise. But we're fortunate in being able to present a piece by Roger Sessions, the Piano Sonata No. 1, which offers a really helpful and extremely nourishing way in to the music of Roger Sessions. It's an early piece, but by the standards of some composers, not so early, because he was 33 or 4 when he wrote this piece. So in the case of someone like Aaron Copland, who was by 34 sounding very characteristically like himself and writing with a tremendously bracing kind of confidence in the dimensions of his musical style, Roger Sessions in the first piano sonata is still a pre-Roger Sessions in terms of the outlines of his interests, but he is a composer of extraordinary eloquence and skill. The melodic quality of his music, which you will hear in this sonata, and the rather clear sense of structure where you are in the piece, beginning, middle, and end, is characteristic of all of Sessions' music. And if those of you who hear this piece today can carry the sense of contact and comprehension that I'm sure you will acquire from Sessions No. 1 sonata through into his other pieces, I think you will have a much better relationship with this very important American composer. We follow the Sessions with a European composer who is still composing at a very, very advanced age as we speak, György Kurtág from Hungary. His 3 pieces for violin and piano. Very brief, and as compressed as the Sessions is expansive. Kurtág is a composer of precise moments. Large spans exist in his music, but I think the most striking thing about his style is an ability to absolutely pin your ear, to excite your ear in a startling way many, many times with a moment, particularly with a harmony. A composer of harmonies so specific and striking that even after a long evening of hearing all kinds of things, I participated, in fact, with him in a composite requiem in Europe in which he composed only a brief epilogue, but a few moments in that epilogue walked around in my ears for weeks after. And I hope that just a few moments in this piece by Kurtág will give you a sense of how valuable he is to recent music and how valuable he will be to the history of music of this time. Henry Cowell's 4 Combinations. It's a very Cowell-like title. Combinations in Cowell's way of thinking really means something almost accidental. There's something about Cowell's ear that loves what happens when a lot of things are thrown into combination somewhat inadvertently, that is, without necessarily communicating with each other. He's known best for his fascination with tone clusters, with, I would call them opaque sonorities, with a generally iconoclastic sense of what is useful material for music and what isn't, which led him to be, not surprisingly, the most powerful and effective advocate for the music of Charles Ives, whose biography he wrote the first essence of, the first instance of. And the four combinations, I think, gives you a sense of this composer's inclusive and tolerant ear. A wider contrast in sensibility probably could not be sought than to follow that Cowell piece with Bob Helps's Trois Hommages, two selections therefrom, the one for Fauré and the one for Ravel. As you can tell from the title, French music was of great importance to Robert Helps. Robert Helps has always been to me a beautiful example of the fact that in a big country like the United States, with many, many regions and many, many kinds of personalities and many, many strands of thought, it's possible for a composer of the greatest value to walk around virtually incognito in the culture, probably scheduled for more discovery later on. And at Bob's death, I remember my thought was, hardly anyone knows how well he composed. He was, of course, mainly a performer, known as a performer, but eventually those very few and very perfectly made pieces will be known. And here you're hearing Robert Helps playing his own music as he did so beautifully, a music which, surprisingly enough for a pianist, is not easy to play pianistically because he was so careful and choice about each sonority, and the fingers just had to figure it out. So, to Homage, Robert Helps. Lee Hyla's String Quartet number 3, a one-movement quartet, very characteristic of this composer's mode of address, which was blunt and forceful, extremely willing to dodge into very funky, daily kinds of musical speech at times when it suits it. A sense of free access to all kinds of music within his pieces, held together by a firm feeling of conviction, belief. This is really what he means at every point. The continuity of this piece, I've heard it really a number of times, and in this performance by the Lydian Quartet, I think it comes through very well. The continuity is one of boldness of assertion, such that the ear does absorb all kinds of sequiturs and non sequiturs as part of the discourse of this piece. And at the end of the piece, I think you feel that it had to be a one movement structure, that the best way for it to cohere was to simply move as it moved, wherever the ear took it. Very different story with variations on a theme of Paganini by Lutheslovsky. Very familiar theme from Paganini, used for variations by many composers. A variation theme of great usefulness because it does all the normal things in the normal places. What Lutheslovsky makes of it is amazingly ingenious. And whenever I've heard this piece, I thought it must be twice as long as it actually is, because he packs in so many ways of responding to this theme, particularly just elaborating the harmony so that altered chord becomes a more altered chord, all standing for tonic and dominant common locations. But as you go through the variations, more and more fancifully displayed. And as played by Robert Levin and Yafei Chuang, the virtuosity of the composition I think, comes to the fore, as well as the virtuosity needed to play it. Sudden Unbidden by Anna Wiesner is a duo for violin and cello. I speak as a great advocate of string duos, violin cello, violin viola, viola cello. There are not enough of them. They're a cohort of players that hang out together, and the few pieces that they have to play are good. Indeed, especially the Mozart violin viola duets. But there's so many occasions for such a piece, and there's so much good music yet to be written. This is a good one. It's a kind of stream of consciousness mind. Anna Wiesner always conveys something about like thinking on her feet, thinking in the moment. If the moment has brought her to a new idea at a place in the piece where you don't often get a new idea, she's not afraid of it. Anecdotally, I would just like to say a little bit about Anna Wiesner. I knew her a long time. She had turned up in a class of mine at MIT. I was cutting the class down because there were too many people in it, and I was about to cut her out, and my wife, Rosemary Harbison, who had heard something of Anna, said, no, don't do that. She's really good. And how right she was. Anna has a way of holding on to the way we responded to music when we were really young. They say that great authors and actors and so forth all have this capacity to remember how it feels to be 9 years old, to be a teenager, to be not the mature, experienced person you are all the time. And I would explain the special qualities of Anna's music much in those terms, that she listens as all of those people that she was, as well as the person that she is. And for me, that's something of a model at times. I sometimes try to channel that with actually much less success than Anna achieves in this realm. Michael Alec Rose, in his piece, Another Acre or So of Being, is finding a musical speech for one of his favorite writers, Guy Davenport. And one of the things I love about this piece is the degree to which he does find the philosophical tone, even the sort of verbal music of that writer. Again, an undiscovered, for many people, undiscovered treasure, Guy Davenport. He was, as it happens, one of my section teachers in poetry writing at college. So I did know him, and I had a sense of where his mind was and what sort of things he was interested in. And when Michael Alec Rose designed some music around his writings, it struck a special chord for me, though Michael's music really always does make a lot of sense poetically to me. So this beautiful piece is being played for us by Ryan McCullough. It's called Another Acre or So of Being, and it's from Four Poetic Images, a cycle based on Guy Davenport. Final piece on the program of Contemporaries will be The Direction in Which the Wind Moves by Jeffrey Stanek. I actually met Jeff Stanek when he was in knee pants. I guess that's the old term for it. And then again, as a fellow in composition at Tanglewood, and I've been aware of him, his musicianship, his pianistic skills, his very, very striking compositional imagination. And those of us who know him at Token Creek, he lives in Madison, are always trying to persuade him to write more music. But in the case of this piece, The Direction in Which the Wind Moves, beautiful title, which is in short movements played by our ensemble, he did favor us with a piece. And the title seems to me perfect. It is an outdoor piece, which is really kind of what we hope he would write. And I think it serves as a conclusion to our program, brings us close to the site from which our concerts took place, a fitting ending to this feature of Toad Creek Festival recent music. Thank you.